tech. Please welcome on stage and online the speakers and our moderator. For the opening speech, please welcome the President of the Municipality of Aveiro, José Rival Esteves.
Muito boa tarde a todos. Não, peço desculpa, já me enganei. Muito boa tarde a todas e a todos. First woman, thank you very much, Michaela, for being our host today. Muito obrigado à Renata, muito obrigado à Susana, muito obrigado a todas e a todos que nos acompanham aqui, ao vivo, no Teatro Aveirense e num sítio qualquer, por estes cantos do mundo, aproveitando as plataformas que nos permitem comunicarmos uns com os outros em situações normais, ainda por cima com os benefícios de também as termos ao nosso dispor nas situações profundamente anormais que todos vivemos no combate à pandemia da Covid-19. Uma nota muito breve, além dos agradecimentos às nossas parceiras da tarde, para dar esta nota muito simples de enquadramento. Alguns mais tradicionalistas podiam achar que a temática das mulheres na tecnologia é um bocadinho absurda, porque, enfim, para que é que a gente está a falar nisto? Algumas, eventualmente, numa perspectiva mais modernista, podem achar a mesma coisa. Porque, diabo, estamos aqui nós a falar das mulheres na tecnologia. Podíamos falar de uma coisa mais igualitária. A lógica nossa, enfim, pode ser transversal às duas visões mais fundamentalistas e nós tentamos dar atenção àquilo que são episódios muito importantes da nossa vida neste trabalho de desenvolvimento do Aveiro Tech City, em que algumas mulheres têm para nós um peso de referência muito importante em alguns dos nossos projetos. Daqui a pouco, na reunião de Câmara, vamos formalizar, aprovar formalmente o Aveiro Tech City Living Lab, nosso laboratório vivo, no fundo, as regras que vão permitir a utilização daquilo que já é hoje um laboratório vivo, ao dispor de todos aqueles que queiram desenvolver produto, investigação, etc., com base numa infraestrutura complexa que já está ao dispor e que, obviamente, embora ainda na sua fase de desenvolvimento, ela já está ao dispor. E uma das pessoas-chave na sua estruturação, na sua concepção, no seu desenvolvimento e nesta fase em que já estamos, da sua utilização, é e seguramente vai continuar a ser a Susana Sargento, e por isso é sempre uma pessoa muito especial neste nosso trabalho e neste quadro misto da sua instituição de referência, que é o Instituto de Telecomunicações, e daquela outra agregada à sua vida e à nossa, que é a nossa Universidade de Aveiro. E, portanto, a Susana tem esse lugar muito especial neste episódio que estamos a construir e que mostramos de uma forma um pouco mais cuidada nesta montra, que é o Aveiro Tech Week. Aqui mesmo, neste edifício do Teatro Aveirense, temos em desenvolvimento um laboratório estranho, fantástico, com uma ansiedade muito forte da nossa parte sobre os resultados que ele vai dar. Vamos ver. Sexta ou sábado? Friday ou Saturday? Sábado. Que é o Music Tech Lab, em que um grupo de 45 pessoas, provenientes de 22 países dos 4 cantos do mundo, aqui está a fazer uma mistura complexa entre o território aveirense, as coisas de Aveiro, alguns instrumentos musicais e tecnologia com várias fontes. É um episódio que nos alegra muito, é um desafio brutal que tem percorrido o mundo e que o quisemos trazer cá, e ele está aqui. Começou na segunda-feira, acaba no sábado, e a Micaela Magas é a sua tudo, a sua mentora, gestora, etc. E, portanto, é por esse e por outros motivos que a gente agora não quer dizer, é uma mulher muito importante na nossa vida, nesta semana e em tantos episódios da dimensão total que nós queremos na tecnologia na nossa cidade, nomeadamente na nossa candidatura à Capital Europeia da Cultura em 2027, e aí estamos a misturar a cultura, aquilo que somos de história, de património, de cultura tradicional, de cultura moderna, estamos a misturá-la com a tecnologia e com aquele elemento fundamental que faz a base, a diferença em tudo, que é a origem e o destino de tudo, que são as nossas pessoas, as melhores do mundo, vocês sabem, são as nossas, as da Aveiro, e as outras quase tão boas como nós, que são todos os outros. Não é? Embora a Micaela é quase aveirense, portanto está a um passo de lhe darmos a cidadania, e portanto com muito gosto vamos enriquecendo-nos como terra e como comunidade, com outra gente que se junta a nós, e obviamente nós também nos vamos enriquecendo com outra gente que se junta a nós. E portanto é desta forma que vamos fortalecendo a comunidade de seres humanos que somos em Aveiro e que somos no mundo inteiro, e esse é o episódio que nós queremos potenciar neste pedaço de tarde, com esta referência especial às mulheres que são referência em peças importantes de componentes do Aveiro Tech City, da Aveiro Tech Week, aqui com uma referência muito, muito especial na Susana e na Micaela, e obviamente com um abraço muito especial, um beijo à Renata e àquilo que ela representa, uma empresa importante no mundo inteiro, a Nokia, que por ser uma empresa, enfim, particularmente inteligente, tem uma base de operação em Aveiro, num sítio fantástico, que já foi um centro de processamento de cereais e de produção de farinha, e que hoje, inacreditavelmente, não produz farinha e não processa cereais, nem os armazena, como armazenou durante tantas décadas, mas para onde se faz outras coisas, nomeadamente onde está sediada a nossa fábrica de ciência viva e onde está sediada a parte de operação, que é basicamente de investigação e desenvolvimento da Nokia Portugal, nos seus 2 hubs que tem, aqui em Aveiro e o outro um bocadinho maior, coisa pequenina, na Amadora, não é, Renata? Na Amadora, muito bem. E, portanto, obrigado à Renata também e à Nokia por ser um dos nossos muitos parceiros naquilo que vamos fazendo para sermos uma boa Tech City, na lógica de crescermos dia a dia nos nossos episódios e mostrarmos de vez em quando aquilo que vamos fazendo, nomeadamente nesta montra que é, como gostamos de dizer, muito mais do que um evento, é uma montra do Aveiro Tech Week. E, portanto, queremos continuar a estar juntos na perspectiva da igualdade, na dignidade, sempre agradecendo à biologia o facto de sermos diferentes. Mas na dignidade, homem e mulher são iguais e, por isso, a nossa pedra de toque no nosso trabalho no Aveiro Tech City, dentro do projeto Aveiro STEAM City, é a educação STEAM, que estamos a trabalhar com toda a nossa comunidade educativa, desde o pré-escolar até ao ensino secundário, para que a nossa malta saiba desde pequenina, no seu processo de formação, que somos todos iguais em dignidade, que é bom sermos diferentes por determinação da biologia e da genética, mas que somos todos convidados para sermos parte igual neste processo de crescimento, de desenvolvimento e de boa introdução e de boa utilização das tecnologias na nossa formação e, obviamente, mais tarde, na nossa vida profissional. Portanto, um beijo às três, um beijo a todas, um abraço aos rapazes e que possamos hoje aprender mais alguma coisa sobre a vida fantástica destas mulheres e sempre com a nota de que vamos continuar a contar com elas no trabalho que estamos a percorrer rumo ao futuro, mas gozando sempre muito bem, com muita intensidade, cada um dos dias que o presente nos vai facultando. Muito obrigado e uma tarde boa para todos. Muito obrigado.
Obrigada.
Thank you to our hero, our mayor of this wonderful city where we keep calm and we carry on with innovation despite of the crisis, and we just basically implement all of the necessary rules. And this week we are prototyping with the cutting edge technologies, and we're looking at various different solutions which will help us as society to move on. And of course women take a huge, huge part in this. In the community that the mayor has described, and we have a few representatives. We have 45 of them from 22 countries this week here. This is the community that I have founded back in 2012. It's now a global community of over 7,500 innovators. We are working simultaneously with Mexico City. There's a whole bunch of researchers in the university in Mexico City that are working with us simultaneously, many, many women. We are also working simultaneously with the University of Porto and also with the NTNU and University of Oslo in Norway. So we are a global community, and as I say, we just carry on and we utilize all talent, as the former Commissioner of Innovation, Carlos Moedas, always said. We need to use all talent to move on. I'm actually wearing one of our t-shirts, and a couple of days ago it was Ada Lovelace Day that most of you will have heard of. She was the one who invented programming. And the other three women on here, Delia Derbyshire, Laurie Spiegel and Daphne Oram, were huge creative innovators in electronics. And so again, we have even men in our labs wear women on their t-shirts. So there's no excuse for women not to be engaged with tech. And I am super, super happy to have with us here, first of all, to reconnect here with Susana Sargento, who is a fellow woman innovator at the European Commission, and also to have Renata with us in the room. We also need women in the positions like Renata's, in really important positions in large organizations, as role models, but also to tell us why is it important to have the female perspective. It's not just the case of being the same as men, it's actually also bringing something else to the table. And also, we have wonderful people that are joining us, wonderful women that are joining us online. Joanna Barbani-Fresha, who's joining us from Barcelona, and Nina Braverman, who's joining us from Israel. So, to begin with, I would like to introduce to you Renata Silva. She's Head of Product Line Management for Digital Operations at Nokia. Please, Renata, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, when I was invited to join this panelist forum, I was asked to show and present what do I do and how did I enter into tech community. And it was an interesting story. So I basically did economics, nothing to do with technology. And after just finishing my course, I entered into these student scholarships in the government for 6 months. And it was really important for me because it showed me everything I didn't want to do in life. So it was repetitive, boring, no-brainers, a lot of no-brainers there. And when I left, I decided, no, this is what I don't want to do in my life. So, but right after I was very lucky because the third operator in Portugal was just starting, called Optimus, if you still remember that mobile operator. So I was like the 5th person joining that company before it was launched. So I joined 9 months before it was launched. And there I was exposed to everything a mobile operator needs. So we basically launched the company in 9 months, and there I had to do everything from selecting the mobile devices that we were going to sell, from provisioning the SIM cards, from defining the rate plans, from defining the coverage requirements, everything around creating a mobile operator. So it was the funniest time of my life. And when I look at my career, I don't think I will ever have so much fun in my life as I had there. But then, of course, I got really engaged and passionate about telecommunications, and that's what I'm still working on. I think I also have been very lucky because I've always had in my hands very innovative projects and products that I had to lead. From launching 3G at the time in Optimus, and then when I moved to Siemens and now Nokia, always working with, for instance, IPTV, where there was no IPTV in Portugal. I had to explain to my friends that they were supposed, and it would be possible to put the TV backwards and select the programs. They were like, no, you're crazy. So this was the type of projects I was working on. And then I moved, again, organization, and now I'm working with 5G. 5G being, I think it's being demonstrated also here in Aveiro these days. So in Nokia, we are basically working now in the 5G ecosystem, because 5G is not only technology, it's an ecosystem, and I will explain why. So let me just try to, okay. So, so why do we call it ecosystem? And 5G is very connected to what we call now the 4th industrial revolution, because it's an enabler for a lot of new services and a lot of new ways and experiences in our lives, right? We can think about, these on the top are the different, let's say, technologies that 5G will bring in terms of latency, speed, bandwidth, and it's an evolution over time, and while it evolves, it will open different possibilities and service types. But you can think about, in terms of mobility, being capable of having the bandwidth, the latency, to basically deploy any service. And then imagine the possibilities in terms of applications, use cases that it can bring. So from events in stadiums, from logistics, robotics, from gaming, where virtual reality will become almost a standard, right? Right now it's very difficult. You need to stay at home, your good connection. You cannot go outside, it's very hard, but you can think about playing outside virtual reality with good quality. Augmented reality is expected to be used across for instance, shopping centers. And then more critical operations like healthcare, like self-driving cars, safety, etc. So it will be a whole new world, and that's why we talk about the new industrial revolution, because everything will be programmable. It's like, it will be a whole new reality for everyone. So how am I contributing to this environment? So actually operators facing these possibilities with the new technology they have at hand, they need to, what 5G will enable is that they will be able to sell their network as a service. So you can think about AWS, where they have, let's say, infrastructure as a service, so you can just go and buy, I don't know, storage, CPUs, etc. it's the same thing with a network. So operators will be able to open their network and make it available to any enterprise company. And there they can just go and order a certain bandwidth, a certain latency, and to work in, we did a certain location, we did a certain period, and that's it. And with that, they can create their services and make them available to their customers. For instance, Sony or Nintendo with the gaming, or BMW with their cars. Basically, all these will be customers of operators like Vodafone, NOS, etc. So all around the world. So basically what I'm working on is in the layer that will be able to make them run those new services. I could not put it as simple as that. So there will be all these new demands, all the opportunities. There will be the network available as a service, and then operators need to be able to create let's say, those offerings to those new customers and monetize that, right? Be able to charge it and to run those services as they go. So operations, network operations, which is the area I'm working on, and the products I lead, are basically the brains, and it will be in the middle of this new world, right? And this is what we basically do. So this is the type of, let's say, things we are creating right now, where operators are basically transforming from the way they work today, which is basically there's a network, there's data, there's voice, there's the TV, and this is what I sell, from, okay, let me just open my network and let everyone build their services on top of my network. And for that, they need to transform. Okay, I will not explain here all the operations that happen in a mobile operator, but they have very siloed way of working. And what they need right now is to basically transform that into a more, let's say, framework way, where things are all connected and make them, their operations very agile and fast and automated. So this is basically what we are building in my product unit, and that we are starting to sell to different operators in the world. Singapore, United States are the first markets that we are working with, but then Europe is also starting, and Japan, for instance, is another one very interesting. So this is basically what I do, because we were very proud. We received, okay, it's showing a bit weird. I don't know what happened to this slide. But basically, we have created this product, and we just received an award for being the most innovative orchestration solution in the market, in the industry, in the telecom. So it shows that what we are building in Nokia is really kind of futuristic and still to be proven, of course, because this is the new world, and there's a lot of ambiguity, of course. But at least it shows we are on the right way and direction. So with this, I think I've eaten all my 10 minutes, so yeah, that's it.
Absolutely, thank you so much, Renata, and a round of applause for Renata Silva. And now I would like to invite Joana Barbani-Freixa, who is Director General of the Digital Society of the Government of Catalonia. Joana, do we have you online? She's joining us directly, live from Barcelona. Do we have Joana? Let me see. Here we go. There she is. Hello, Joana. It's very nice to connect with you. Let me see if we can hear you. Okay, can't hear you at the moment. This is such a common occurrence at the moment, making sure people can hear each other. How are we doing? can get a sign from someone. Yes, of course. We can. Should we give the floor to Susana while we wait for Joanna to establish an audio connection? Is that a yes? Because I also have to get your slides up. That's okay. It's you know. Shall we go with Susana in the meantime? Is that a yes? No, everybody's too afraid to do this and say, yeah, go ahead. Susana, could I please ask you to take the floor? Susana is a full professor at the University of Aveiro, researcher at Telecommunications Institute, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, Woman Innovator of 2016, European Woman Innovator in the area of IoT, Internet of Things. That was a fantastic thing for me to hear that year, that a woman in IoT was chosen as Woman Innovator that year. It was the first time that happened, I believe. So it's a huge pleasure to welcome Susana. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So actually, first and before going into only 3 or 4 slides, I may do something similar to what Renata did. So tell you a bit of why I'm here today at this stage. So just to tell you that actually from the start, I went to the telecommunication, to the technology area, and usually I say and I joke, it's not false, it's true, but I joke that stating that my father, he wanted to have boys, all boys, and he had 2 daughters. So he had 2 daughters, but our education was not a girls' education, so we were being educated as if we were girls, boys, wherever. So I was having a Spectrum at home, these first computers when I was 8, and I couldn't play games there. So he told me, you know, there is here a book where you have some programming, so you can program things, you know? So I started with him. So when I was 13, there was in my home village, there was the possibility to join classes, programming classes, when I was 13. So this was in the end of the 80s. And my father asked me, so do you want to go there and to learn programming? And I did. So just to tell you that since I was exposed to this very, very early, I was never afraid of technology, and I think that it was one or the main sources for me to be here now. So I graduated here actually in Aveiro. I did my PhD in Aveiro and also in the US. And when I was finishing my PhD, I had the opportunity to go to the University of Porto. And I did go to the Faculty of Sciences, so it was the Department of Computer Science, and my area, the area of communication networking, was just starting there. So they told me, you know, so you are the first PhD professor that we have here, so you are going to start a research group, and you are going to be leading everything that we have in terms of courses in the area of networking. So I was 27 years old at that time. I was very, very afraid. So they are telling me to do all these kind of things. How can I do them? But then I said, okay, let's go forward. And I got the strength to really do nice things, interesting things that we could do for the society, that we could show for the society. And I usually say that if I wouldn't have that opportunity at that time, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. Okay, so I think this is very important to have this possibility to just go forward, and if we are successful, then we can continue our life with this kind of a path. So this was a bit of what I've done and how I came here. I'm a professor in the University of Aveiro. Here I'm a researcher in the Institute of Telecommunications. And some years ago, with the result of some work that we were doing that was very very different from what was usually done in the scientific community. So we wanted to have vehicles communicating between themselves. We actually founded a company, is Venium, so I was one of the founders of the company. And nowadays, I also cooperate with the government in the Encode 2030 program to help on the digitalization of our country. So I'm coordinating the research axis to try to enforce areas such as artificial intelligence, computation, quantum computation, so all these main areas in our country. I cooperate also with the government on the evaluating panel for the companies that that want to go for this Fundo 200 to get funding from our country, and I cooperate with the European Commission on researching, evaluating proposals and projects. So yes, it's a very busy life, but it's a very, very interesting life too, so I always trying to do some nice things. So just to give you an idea, and this figure relates a bit to what I usually do. So I work in the network communication. So I want to be able to get not only people communicating, but to have everything communicating in a place, to have the cars, to have sensors, people, boats, drones. Some drones, they should be, yes, so some drones here. So this is the kind of area I work on, and I've been doing lots of work on this. But when working on this, we try to think what we can do for the citizens. So why are we doing communication? So we want to show them what we are able to do. So not only doing the communication, but trying to implement them in real world. And in 2013, we built this very important, actually, network in Porto. So we were able to have more than 400 buses communicating between themselves and with the infrastructure, to giving free internet access to the people that were inside the buses that were in Porto. So this network is now commercial and is still working there. But since that time, I really wanted to do something here in Aveiro. So I'm from here, here in this university, and I really wanted to do that here. And so we have been trying to start thinking about a concept where we could have Aveiro as an open lab, an open laboratory where we could have not only researchers but also companies that could come here and they could have the infrastructure, the right infrastructure for them to install and test equipment, to get data, to be able to have any element, any equipment wherever, and be able to connect it and get that information in real time. So this is mainly our concept. And as the mayor was stating, we have been working on building our tech city lab, and this is something that goes from technology to the field. So one of the things that we have done, so we have now 16 kilometers of fiber around the city of Aveiro. And why do we want to have that fiber? To connect all those dots. So to connect all these dots here, so they are 44 dots. They are communication, computation, and sensing elements that we have in the city. 44 sets of it. They are all connected through fiber and then connected to our data center too. And to be able to connect anything, to be able to have any use case, for example, in terms of the management of the traffic in the city, smart parking, autonomous vehicles, anything. So the environment, so to be able to get real information about pollution, about environment in Aveiro, to be able to connect all the boliceiros here in Aveiro. And here you can see some of the figures, some of the peaks that we have here in terms of the fixed stations we have around, but also you can see there buses from Transdev, vehicles from Veolia that having communication sensing elements that are sending all their data in real time. So this is it. We are working to try not only to get all this city with infrastructure, but to be able to build real services, to real application for the citizens, and to be able to show them why technology is important for them and for the city. Thank you.
Many thanks to Susana. And now I feel like we're in Eurovision. Barcelona, can you hear us? I think Barcelona can hear us, and I am told that we will also be able to hear Barcelona. Can we connect to Joanna Barbani? Fresha? Let's see. Okay, Joanna. Hello. And her mic is working, but it's not coming to...
Hello? Hello. I'm here. Can you hear me? I think it's not working, the audio. Hello, hello?
Can we make sure that Joanna
Can you
also
hear
hears
me?
us?
I'm gonna try to talk. Hello? Okay, so I'm gonna start. Can I talk to talk? Can I start to talk?
Go ahead, Joanna.
Okay, can I see my presentation, please? Because I can't see the slides, so I don't know in which page am I of my presentation. Okay, okay, that's perfect, thank you. Okay, bona tarda a tots i a totes. Good afternoon to everyone. Buenas tardes. I'm Joanna, I'm from Barcelona. Well, and I'm General Director for Digital Society in Generalitat de Catalunya. If you can please pass to the next slide. I will talk a little bit of Catalonia. Catalonia, as you may see, and I'm sure that you know, it's a nation located at the Mediterranean Sea. It's very close to Portugal. And as far as our data concerns, we look like a European medium-sized country. We have the similar extension than Denmark and the same foreign direct investment than them. And we are almost 8 million citizens like Austria, more or less. And Catalonia GPD is similar to that of Estonia. Can you please pass the next one? Well, I'm working in a new ministry. If you can please pass the next slide. I'm working, as I told you before, in a new ministry who was created in 2018, 2 years ago. And before that, it was just a vice ministry depending on the presidential. But the former president of Catalonia, and I say former because now he has been disabled by the Spanish court. So the former president, he thought that it would be necessary to create a new ministry to develop these policies as main goal of our government. So now we are working in, as you can see on the picture, in two general directions. One focused on digital policy, that is where I'm working, and another one based on public administration and how can we become an e-digital country. If you can pass to the other, please, next slide. As a singular ministry, we are working now in 5 main strategies that you can see here. The first one is to build a nation with real digital citizens. That means engaged, empowered, protected, and skilled. And very important, we work for men and for women, both of them. We are also working in having a connected territory of smart cities and digital infrastructure. And this point refers especially to Smart Catalonia project and also in our efforts to have all the territory connected by fiber. Then we are also working to having a government and administration of the 21st century. That means open, digital, and efficient, because we should be the ones in giving examples, so we are working on that. Then we want to be a cyber-secure nation that protects citizens, businesses, and institutions. And that last but not least, we work to promote the digital innovation as the powerhouse of this new economy that it's coming. If you can please pass to the other one. Well, in my division, we are working on now different projects to become, as I told you before, in an empowered, skilled, and protected nation. We launched 2 years ago with both Education Ministry and Economy the STEM plan. STEM, as you know, is science, technology, engineering, mathematics, for having more students in these matters. So we work on that not only on the primary school, but also at the university. We are still working on a charter of digital rights and responsibilities to ensure that the protection of these digital rights for our citizens and institutions. We've done that together with some European experts and organizations. And now we are also working on Barcelona Digital Talent. It's a project led by ourselves and the City Hall. And as you know, there's a lack of digital profiles to work on companies in ICT in Europe. So we are working with the economical institutions and the mobile world capital to increase this number of digital profiles. So this is very important for us. And at least our Donatic plan, Dona in Catalan means women, it's muller, I think in Portuguese is muller, so it's our muller plan. And we are working for having more women in the ICT to inspire women to be here, to promote and change the role of women in ICT. And by the moment, so far, we have promoted the recognition of at least 100 women and the incorporation of 400 girls in ICT activities. Next, please. I'm going to tell you now how we are in Catalonia. There is here some figures about the ICT in Catalonia. It employs almost at 4% of the population, but only 30% in the ICT are women, and only 8% are tech women in tech companies. So the other one, they are working in communications and law and everything. By 2020, the European Union will lack 900,000 skilled ICT workers, but the reality is that nowadays only 9% of developers are women in Europe, and only a rough 18% of women hold management positions in the ICT sector. Catalonia as well is located on the average of the Digital Economy and Society Index, the DESI, and as you know, it's summarized the relevant indicators on Europe's digital performance. It tracks the evolution on the state members and in digital competitiveness, and now we are in the average. And more important is that women earn almost 20% less than a man for the same position in companies. So this is what's happening now in Catalonia, and this is what's happening now in Europe. So we have to work on that. If you can please pass to the other slide. So we are moving now in a context where Catalonia, despite the pandemic, is still reference in the digital transformation. During this last quarter, while we were under lockdown, the sector here in Catalonia generated employment, so it was growing up. But on the other side, we are still fighting for having more women in STEM, both at the university and businesses. If you can please pass to the next slide. This is the last one. So this is our Donatic plan. 3 months ago, the Catalan government approved this Women in ICT plan. So it demonstrates the will to work and lead public policies in aim to promote and recognize the role of women in ICT. We work, as you can see, in 4 main goals. The first goal is to make the sector attractive for both women and girls. And in this way, I must say that it's very important to show girls why technology is useful. And it's also necessary to give them some female references. In some cases, it's just a matter of marketing or selling the product. We need to sell the technology for these girls. The second goal is to make technological women and contents created by women visible. In Catalonia, did you know that on the technology and science books at the primary school, there's just 2 women for 2,000 men? Their picture or their reference in the books. So we need to change that, making our references visible. So 2 days ago, it was the Ada Lovelace Days. We celebrated the Donatic Awards, where we've already done it for 6 years, and more than 500 women have applied. So it's a really manner for visualize them. Then we are also working on digitalizing and training everyone. We've developed our own digital accreditation. It's called ACTIC, and it's totally adapted to and linked to with European Digital Competence Framework. It is DIGCOM. As you know, it measures digital skills into different areas. So by the moment, there are about 370 places where people can attend to learn, and 80,000 people have been taught and passed the exam. And finally, our main goal, and it's very important for us, is to get full and effective participation of ICT women in decision making at companies and also on entrepreneurship. Because these women who are now entrepreneurs will run a company in the future, and that company will rise with a female mentality. And for us, this is very important. So, because I don't know if you know that only 1% of venture capitals goes to women, women and lead companies with companies leading by women. So we are fighting against that, and we are now sponsoring their projects with €500,000. We are now giving some grants for entrepreneurs, for women entrepreneurs. And we are working these areas supported by 3 pillars. The first pillar is the media. It's necessary to make women visible. We should be in the news. We should be in the newspaper. We should be on internet, because as my colleagues said before, we have a name, we have a surname, and we work on a position. So we are like men. We need to be there. The second pillar is the data, numbers and figures. We are working on an observatory to know exactly what's going on, because we need data to take decisions. And the most important, we need to keep networking, because that defines us, that defines women. We need to work together and help each other. And there's a new word for this in Catalan, or in English, it's sororidad, it's sorority. I think in Portuguese must be fraternidade or sororidade. So let's work together, and both women and women, and obrigada for everything. Thank you very much.
Organizing on Saturday what we call Sparks Labs for young people. This is 12 to 15-year-olds. And they're based on the idea of STEAM, not STEM. This is science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And the reason why we tend to go for STEAM, not STEM, is because we find that, well, in our track record shows over the past many years, that we get many more girls to participate when there is a creative component. I would be very interested to know from you, with your experience of working for a large organization and knowing what the sort of future skills that are also required in these big organizations, what do you think this combination of skills can bring to the future of a big organization such as Nokia or Siemens?
Yeah, good question. So definitely, I mean, I don't think machines will be ever able to replace creativity. So they will be able to replace repetitive tasks, even some intelligence, but never creativity. So, and also in order, there's another dimension, which is the ambiguity that the future brings. And the more creative or futuristic you are in terms of put your, it's like a Back to the Future, right? Movie. You navigate to the future in your head, you think about how will it work, and then you come back and try to, let's say, imagine what to do in order to, let's say, move into that direction. And for that you need to be extremely creative. And not only creative, but then be able, which is something I think women do very well, which is then to break the ambiguity into, let's say, concrete things to be done and to achieve
Milestones.
Milestones.
Yeah.
Because I think also women like to put like a to-do list. Like, I
They
need to do
they're
this, I need to do
goal-oriented,
that.
yeah.
They're
Yeah,
very
yeah.
kind of,
Yeah, I think
I
we
need to do
agree.
this, and I want to do
Yeah.
that, I need to do that. So I think we are good in that.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, extremely important. It's already quite important, but I think the importance will increase.
This is wonderful to hear because this is exactly what we have observed. Now, I'm going to make a massive generalization, and things are not black and white, of course. And of course, gender is a sliding scale, and people have tendencies in one way or another way. But we have found that on one end of the scale, we have guys who tend to play with technology until something interesting happens. On the other end of the scale, we find girls or women who are very goal-oriented and very much the way that you have described. They tend to have this idea of where they want to get to, and then they give themselves kind of stages of how to get there, and they will learn any technology that they need in order to get there. So this is I don't know if Susana, you have this experience also from teaching and from this aspect, but we find that both these approaches are actually really useful. Both this approach of being playful with a piece of technology, and like you say, you set up IoT experiments for people to just play and see what can happen, and also with this big mission, and we find that women tend to have the mission.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we agree. I think we agree.
Mission, so they are better organized, they know what they have to do, what are the several steps they need to be done. And I think that women and men, they are very different. Yes, they are. Okay, so we are very different, and that's good. That's the beauty of it, because we are very different, the way of thinking is different, the way of working is different, and it's this diversity that is very important in a team, and in a team that is working with completely different minds, so seeing the different aspects of it, I think it's really, really important.
Yeah, that's wonderful actually, and also a good segue to our next speaker. I have known Ina Braverman, who's joining us from Israel, for some time now. And this is a person who has been really faced with the challenge of being woman in business in the energy industry, where the percentage of women is so low that I can't even remember, but it's kind of negligible. And also, she is someone who was motivated by a very personal story. She was born very close to Chernobyl when the big disaster happened. And as a very young baby, she had a cardiac arrest because of the explosion. And she was revived, and she made it her mission, and we talk about women's missions, she made it her lifetime mission to introduce clean energy to the world. So let me see if we have Ina joining us from Israel now. Could we please see if we can see Ina? To see you.
Can you hear me?
You have the live stream simultaneously. Perfect. Now let me see if we can hear you. Can we hear you, Ina? Start to speak, and then we can see if we can hear you, and also I suspect that you have some slides to show as well. Shall we try to load those?
So I see myself, I don't see the slides yet, so it would help if I could see the slides as well. Oh, okay, perfect. So I'm Ina Braverman, I'm the founder and CEO of EcoWave Power, and Michela, thank you very much for the kind presentation. I opened EcoWave Power when I was 24 years old, and obviously being 24 in the energy industry and being a woman is very, very difficult for the industry. So today I will present you a bit of our work with EcoWave Power and a little bit information about wave energy, as well as maybe a short story about how it all began and my experience as a female entrepreneur. So next slide, please. So basically, right now we're living in a very unsustainable present, where 80% of the energy of the world is currently produced by fossil fuels, and there's about 50 years left for oil and natural gas to run out, and about 110 years left for coal. Some people say that these numbers don't really make sense, and we probably have oil and coal forever. But even if we do we actually want to use them for generation of electricity? Next slide. So here we can see a map of the world. Everything that is in pink is natural, is not natural, it's disasters that happen because of climate change, because of mankind, and all the blue ones are natural disasters. We can see that most of the floods, typhoons, hurricanes, fires that we're seeing around the world are directly derived from our negative impact on the planet. Actually, according to the United Nations, 60% of the worldwide greenhouse gas emissions are derived directly from the way that we produce our electricity. Next slide. So right now we can see a significant growth in the energy consumption. The expectation is to have 25% growth in energy consumption by 2040, which will require more than $2 trillion in investment. 30% of it is deemed to be produced by renewable energy sources by 2023. So there is definitely a positive trend towards renewable energy. Next slide. So there's many renewable energy sources. Most of them, the most familiar ones are wind and solar. So why wave energy? First of all, 2/3 of the world population are currently living on the coastline. So with this population distribution, the need for wave energy is undeniable. It's a very stable source. In suitable locations, it can provide electricity 24/7, as opposed to solar, for example, which cannot provide energy at night. And the most amazing thing that according to the World Energy Council, wave energy can produce twice the amount of electricity that the world produces now. Next slide. So if wave energy is so great, why didn't commercialize? All the previous attempts of wave energy were to harness wave energy in the offshore, very deep into the sea, which was expensive. It was breaking down because of the high waves in the offshore. It wasn't insurable, and it wasn't so environmentally friendly as it connected to the ocean floor and changed the ecological balance. Next slide. Our solution is completely different. You can see in the photo here our Gibraltar power station. We connect to existent man-made structures such as piers and jetties and breakwaters and other types of structures. It's easy to maintain. Next slide. It's very simply operational. The floater just goes up and down with the movement of the waves. It pushes in the hydro cylinder, which transmits a biodegradable fluid into land-located conversion unit. So the maintenance is mostly done from land. The only thing in the water is the floaters, and they belong in the water. And we currently have 17 patents for the system, and we're building our second grid-connected power station that should be opened in a few months. Next slide. So the competitive advantages is the fact that it's very cost efficient, it's the same price as wind per megawatt, it's fully insurable by reputable insurance companies, it's reliable. When the waves are too high for the system to handle, the floaters automatically lift above the water level and they lock in the upward position until the storm passes, as we can see in the photo below. And it's 100% environmentally friendly, as we do not connect to the ocean floor and do not create any presence on the ocean floor. Next slide. So we started in 2011 in the wave pool in the Hydromechanical Institute in Kiev, in Ukraine. We continued to our first off-grid installation in the port of Jaffa in Israel, which we're currently expanding in collaboration with EDF, the French national electrical company, and the Israeli Energy Ministry. We opened our first grid-connected power station in Gibraltar in 2016, and currently we have a project pipeline of 254 megawatts. And we really believe that wave energy will become a significant part of the world's renewable energy mix. Next slide. So my personal story, Michela told you a little bit about it. I live in Israel, but I was born in Ukraine, and 2 weeks after I was born, the Chernobyl nuclear reactor exploded, which was the worst in history nuclear disaster in terms of costs and casualties. I was one of the babies that got hurt from the negative effects of such explosion. I actually had a respiratory arrest, I stopped breathing, and a clinical death. Luckily, my mother, a nurse, approached my crib on time and gave me a mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, which saved my life. I got a second chance in life and really wanted to do something good with it. And I really believe that wave energy is something that is worth your attention and is a good thing to do with my second chance. Our company went public in Sweden last year in July 2019, and it was a very nice closure for me since when the Chernobyl explosion happened, the USSR back then chose to hide it from the world, and Sweden was actually the first country that announced the explosion to the whole world, and by doing so saved many lives. So I'm very proud to be listed there on Nasdaq Stockholm. And although I'm very proud of the company's achievements in terms of the technology and in terms of the fact that really we were able to take the company public in a completely new sector, which is of course hard, as a female entrepreneur, I face a lot of different difficulties. For example, a short story that happened to me after the IPO is that we approached a PR company in Sweden in order to help create more awareness to the stock price. And I met with a very impressive woman from that PR company and asked her, like, what should we do to make our stock successful in Sweden? And she said, listen, you need to step down from the CEO role and to hire a man, an older looking man with the white hair, because that's something that sends a vibe of an expert. Like a young woman doesn't send this message. And I was shocked because, I got to I did a successful IPO, I developed a good technology, and the best PR advice that I get is to step down. So I told her, listen, it's against the beliefs and the DNA of my company. And she said, listen, what do you want to be? You want to be right or you want to make money? Which kind of reinforced the fact that for some reason, you can be a woman and be successful in business. It's either being right or being a woman or making money. And that's something that I think that needs to disappear. And I think this particular something is being stressed by what the previous speaker have said before me, that only 1% of the world VC funding is going to women. It almost seems as though women have to step down in order for the companies to become financially successful. And that's something that we need to prevent and fight against, because if I step down and you will step down and your daughters will step down, then we will have a lot of generations of people, of women that can stand up for themselves and that don't believe in themselves. And that is something that is very important to prevent. Thank you.
Thank you, Ina, and this was hugely inspiring. I'm sure you will all agree. And it takes so much courage for Ina to persist, also in an area of energy that's up and coming. So it's at a stage where, for instance, solar energy was in the 90s, and nobody was accepting this as a proper solution. They said it wasn't scalable, it was too expensive. Now, of course, it's of course adopted, and it's a completely different story. And when people started with wave energy, they started to implement it offshore on oil rigs. The maintenance was ultra expensive. You had to go by helicopter. It was not viable. So wave energy was, not good enough to be deployed. Now, of course, Ina's company has a contract with Portugal to install it on breakwater. And what is nice about it, they are small units of 1 kilowatt each. So what happens is that you can now create energy citizenship through this. You could have small investments by individuals, by SMEs. It can be more of a movement in the same sort of vein that we had with, for instance, we had with the organic food, where people said nobody will buy it, it's too expensive. This is too small, maybe not scalable in the traditional way, but we are changing things and we are investing in these things in very different ways, and it can be community oriented. So basically, we can definitely see what women bring to society. They bring a different approach, a different way of thinking. Susana, I was wondering, what is in it for the women? They have to go through all this. You just heard what she has to go through.
Yeah.
What's in it for the women?
Okay, so so it may be difficult, and I was hearing Hina, and I can understand what she has gone through, and I have to tell you that I was lucky. Okay, I was lucky because I was able to get the best of what was happening to me. But I was also lucky because I had people that they really trusted. They really trusted me. But what Hina's saying is true. So what I felt in the beginning, and I remember that when I finished my PhD, and then I was professor in university, I was working in projects, I was going to meetings, going to conferences here and there. And it happened several times that people were, so I was talking with people were talking with me, and then they asked, so are you a student? And I said, no, I'm not a student. Oh, you are not a student. So with whom are you working? No, I'm running a group. Oh, you are leading a group. And I remember that at that time, since I was 20-something, 30, I was always thinking, so I should seem older than what I am.
I have the same.
I really wanted to be, I don't know, 35, almost 40, just for the people to really recognize me as someone that could rule something, that could be able to rule something. Now I'm a bit older and I'd like to be younger again, but, but I had that feeling that it was difficult for people to give me the recognition, the one that did not know me before. After some time, and after having, in terms of professor, the company, and the several things I've built, then I started feeling the opposite. Oh, Susana is able to do this. So we need a woman to be able to be in this committee for this and that. Oh, Susana is there. So then Susana is there. So then Susana is for everything. So then I started to feel the opposite. So we are so few that then we are called for most everything. So in terms of what is there for women in technology, it's very fun actually, right? Because with what I do, I'm not just working on the technology per se, but I'm working on the technology for what it can do for the people. So I'm able to see, wow, so we are building this. So people are starting to use this. So we are able to showcase for the citizens what we are doing, because technology is here for something for the citizens. So I think that what I can get now is very, very, very much, because I can see that all the work that I've done is having some meaning, and in terms of recognition is also very, very good.
And also in terms of being a role model, right?
Yes,
because
so.
of course we mentioned, daughters, and Ina was saying, well, if I step down, you step down, my daughter is also going to have to step down, right?
The new generation will have the same problems if we don't do something before, right?
Yeah.
So
absolutely, and I work a lot in policy and in policy advisory boards. I just felt at some point that I needed to cut my hair to look more like Angela Merkel, because otherwise nobody takes me seriously. and it's true. And now I'm super happy that we have wonderful, very beautiful, young-looking women like Mariya Gabriel in charge that can be role models, or people like Eva Kaili, who's another very, very beautiful woman, youthful-looking woman in Parliament, because we need those role models. Otherwise, young women do not have these sorts of role models. You know, either you are someone who is bringing in coffee, like Inna says, or you have, once you are a very, you know, much older, then suddenly you can have authority because you look like a mother figure, right? Okay. So I guess as a role model, I'm sure that you are a role model in your company for women. Do you see yourself as a role model?
I don't think a lot about that, but I recognize that I'm seen a bit as a role model, which is good. I mean, there are not so many women in Nokia, but sometimes I'm approached by some women saying, "Okay, I'm following your career, and I really like what you're doing." And I was like, "Okay, so this is influencing someone at least," which is really good, because okay, whenever we do our work, we are not really actively thinking that, okay, we may be influencing A or B, but it's always really nice to see that happening. And when I was thinking about what's in it for us, I think, and we have seen from just an observation from all the presentations we had, I think in all of them we are seeing how we are shaping the future, right? Yeah. And if I look at my first boring work that I had, no one was shaping the future there. And there were a lot of women there, right? No, all doing like the basics, and we are shaping the future. So it's, what else can you ask for?
Mission,
yeah?
Mission
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true.
Definitely. There is another very interesting thing. So Ina was one of the finalists in Women Innovators. I think she should have been one of the winners, but of course there were lots of fantastic women there. So I'm not going to, of course, discredit any of those who have won, and lots of women should have won. But she did win, actually, I believe, the United Nations Clean Energy Award among 650 participants, so she's not short of awards. But there is another aspect that has been put forward by another woman who was in the running of Women Innovators, whom I noticed, a French woman, who has put forward this research that shows if you want gender equality in large organizations like Nokia, it is very hard to show that employing more women will give you more profit. That is very difficult. Those metrics are difficult. However, there's another metric that is apparently really compelling, and that is, if you want to employ young male programmers or engineers who are very competent from the millennial generation, they look to work for companies that have equal or equity in gender policy. Yeah. And they will go and work for companies that have more of a sympathetic attitude to them. And that generation has a very different attitude. So, ironically, it turns out, employing more women in large organizations and having more of an equity in gender policy actually attracts more young men. So this was a very, very interesting thing that was put forward, and she actually put it forward in one of those TED-style talks that ended up with 500,000 views in France, because people were like, "Wait, what is she saying? is this possibly true?" Now, do you find there is a different kind of approach coming in from the younger employees that you work with?
Yeah, there's a story. It's not in Portugal. It's in United States that is showing how different this generation is. And I'm not that old, but even for me, I think, okay, how is this possible? So in San Francisco, Nokia decided to invest in a new office that will be a combination of different offices, a big one, but it was a bit outside the city. And it happened that when hiring and recruiting new people, young people, the guys were just giving up off the way because they wanted to work in the cities. And I mean, young people are not, they are not motivated by how much do they get in terms of salary. It's all about what you were saying, the empathy with the company, if it's fulfilling their, let's say, other, how do you say, their personal or more soft skills, or how can I say it? So they were just not being able to hire anyone because people, the young people were just not willing to even travel to do the interview, not even more work every day going to that office. So they had to build an office in the city center so they could actually hire those younger people, which is interesting. Well, in our times, I mean, we would just go just to get the job anywhere, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's a very different generation, isn't it? We're seeing a sort of a different attitude, and this idea that they're not so motivated by the wage packet, and they do have some other standards that they find are far more important, and that is a life experience, or ethical considerations, or environmental considerations, and this is something that maybe, I don't know if Ina can still join us from. I know that Joanna is not online at the moment. I know that I'm told that Ina is still online. Are we able to get Ina on the screen at all, or is this going to be very tricky at this stage? Because I would really love for her to tell us how do we get to a point where we don't actually have to have these women. But, oh, they're both there. They're both there. How wonderful. Now, I will give the technical team a big challenge, because I would love to hear from all of the women. What do we do to stop having women in tech dedicated panels? Which are actually very specific, because you don't have men in tech dedicated panels, do you? So how do we get there?
So I think that it's not the moment to stop. Unfortunately, the inequality is still quite large in the financial sector, in the energy sector, in the whole STEM sector, actually. And I do think that we need to actively be doing things that will enable us to overcome this gap. And I think that panels like these, interviews, TED Talks like the ones that you mentioned before, any type of positive spotlight on the efforts that are led by women, on positive achievements that are achieved by strong and inspirational women, is something that is very much required. So I think, unfortunately, I think we're not in a position to be able to stop the panels, maybe even have some more panels of the same sort. And maybe if we'll start getting much more equal opportunities, and we will see equal amount of women in boards of companies, and equal amount of women as speakers in conferences, then we can definitely stop and go rest. But now it's not the time to rest and stop these panels.
Important. I wonder if Joanna is able to also join us. It would be really nice if she's still there. Okay, it doesn't look like she can connect. Maybe we'll go into the room. So I don't know, Susana, if you can join us on this big question.
Yeah. Again, I was lucky, but I can realize that we are not there yet, and. I can still see, and I'm a professor, so I really deal with many students, boys, girls, and I'm still continuing to see that girls, they are afraid of technology. They are afraid of what can be done, what they can do. So I think why do I think this is still important? Because I think the examples need to be shown. Okay, so this to be able to show to these girls, you have people, so you can aspire to be there, because there are many people that go. Okay, so why should you be different on that? Okay, so in that sense, I still think that this is something important, and I have 2 boys and a girl, The youngest is very small, is 2 years old, but the other two, the boy and the girl, so I usually tell my girl, you know, you can do anything you can. And then I tell my boy, you know, you need to go and need to stand out because girls, they will also be able to do whatever they can. Yeah. So trying to get this stabilization, right? So between them, because I still think it's very, very difficult. And I still think that these girls start on a lower base, or at least they are not mentality-wise directed to be leaders, to be game changers. This is still difficult for them. So I think that the examples, they are still needed at this stage.
Renata, you broke through that because you actually are in a leadership position and in technology.
Yes, but what we recognize, and I was part of a very interesting program in Nokia last year called just for women. So like 35 out of the whole Nokia women leaders, and there we recognized how biased the whole system is. Because even, so inside these companies, even the training that is done built for men, for the skills they don't typically have. So women, for instance, are very strong in soft skills. But all the trainings we were having until like 2 years ago, until also Nokia phone kind of realized the problem, were about soft skills. Mm-hmm. So there were trainings for men to just close the gap, but there were no business-related skills or trainings that is actually where the women's gap is. So historically, we are not that strong in the business acumen, and men are not that strong in the soft skills. And all the trainings were like around soft skills and so on. So they were basically done for men to grow, and women would just stay there because they were not exposed to any business trainings, nothing. So we were just in our usual positions. I think I was a bit of luck because I did economics. So, and that's not very normal in a telecom company, but that helped me with having the, let's say, the background that I needed in order to kind of get the leap, right? So the next level. So I could always understand the business behind whatever I was doing, and that helped me in growing in my career. But that's not normal in a company, and that's what I think all these companies need to be aware of. It's about the women-specific needs and adjust to that as well. And if there's balance there, I think everyone will grow. And there's another aspect, which is our personal life, to be honest. So women have much more fronts, right? We have the children, we have the house, we have then the work, and we need to handle all these three things at the same time. And as we get older, I think we need to handle more things, and if we don't have the right, let's say, the needed help at home, or we don't have the right balance, it will make it harder for us to also grow. So if companies, again, and the people that hire women and are not aware about these, let's say, personal needs, they will also be biased by, okay, why isn't she working, or why does she need to leave a bit earlier, or why, and there's still a lot of this in our reality and our society,
Well, in Sweden, men also have children, and they also stay at home and have children.
That's
right.
not.
So it is just really how we organize ourselves as a society and what our priorities are, right?
But that's not normal. I see.
Well, I would argue to say that is normal. It's just that perhaps it's not prioritized in some societies or
in most of the societies.
Right?
Yeah. Yes.
And of course, as we go, and I think this is a very important point. You are both in communications because you deal with IoT communications, data-driven. You deal with 5G communications. Again, data being absolutely central to the systems that are operating. And if in data, this bias is being transferred, right? Women are really big on communications. Communication is actually supposedly a soft skill, and this is where we are number one, and you are both dealing in the future is definitely even more communications, 5G, IoT. So women are king in this, queen, not king. So within that, we have to deal with the data. We need to deal with the biases that come, that are possibly inherited from the current systems. So it is even more important, I would say, that women like yourselves are there in leadership positions to ensure that we do not inherit this current attitude, because we will have a very unbiased, we'll have unbiased systems, both for communication and for exchange of any data in the future. Wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Maybe a final word from both of you?
Yes, there was this thing I heard one day, and I really thought about it, because I think it's very important. So data, and the way to trade data, and the way to learn data, and to work with data. Nowadays, we have all this boom on artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is having data, trade data, train, and be able to decide upon data and the way we train data. But if we have only men working on it, the decisions will be completely, or maybe different than if we have women training and making decisions concerning the data. So if we are evolving to a society where we have this Sophia, the robot, the human robot, so she's built with a decision model made by men or made by women. So both of them need to be there, because this is the way that we are building our society.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think that's very, very important.
Renata?
Yeah. No, I would just, so if I would talk to young women and try to kind of motivate them to join us, I think we have a unique opportunity, and we see that with multiple services that exist now, like Uber, that completely reshaped the way taxis. I mean, even old things like taxi. We can just change the world. I mean, it's so interesting, and also how fun this is, right? Because it's not everywhere that you can just play with things and think about it and work with your teams. And really, I mean, it's so dynamic. It's so futuristic. That it's really fun. So, and that's not something you have in advocacy or, I don't know, management or, I don't know, counting.
Absolutely.
Right?
So yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it's not just the fact that we are mission oriented, and we really are big on societal impacts and on making this equity, this sort of lack of bias, but it's also huge fun to be prototyping the future together. So thank you on that note. Thank you to Susana and to Renata, and also online to Ina and to Joanna for all of your wonderful contributions. And I hope that we have managed to inspire some more women in the audience to take up really roles of leadership, not just to go and play with technology, but to actually take up roles of leadership in technology in the future. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.